Everyone wants to make 10K a month in high ticket sales, online business. They see the lifestyle, the freedom, the commissions, and honestly, they think it's easy. But after myself being 3 years in this game and taking over 2,000 live calls, working with dozens of clients and watching people rise, crash, plateau, I realized there's some brutal lessons that honestly no one talks about. And these aren't the corny, stay positive, work hard type lessons. These are the real lessons, the ones that will either break you or build you. And I say this because me, myself, I've been in this industry for the last 2, 3 years, and I went from 0 to 40K a month in under a year. And I'm still in this industry to this day. So in this video, I'm going to share 5 hardest lessons I've learned in the last 3 years of high ticket sales. That way you can just skip the pain and accelerate your growth. So listen in. Now, the first thing you have to understand is every rejection is a roadmap to success if you're actually brave enough to read it. What do I mean by that? Most salespeople avoid their weak spots. And yes, listen to yourself, be honest with yourself right now, okay? Most people replay their good calls, they ignore the bad ones, and they stay stuck at average. They don't want to look at their weak points. But your weaknesses are actually the fastest path to success and making money online. And if you run towards the hard parts instead of like running away from them, objections, no-shows, awkward conversations, plateaus, you'll grow faster than anyone trying to avoid them. And a really good way to explain this is imagine going to the gym and imagine training only your strong side. So for me personally, I love training push. Imagine if all I trained was push every single day. Yeah, you might look good in the mirror with your chest and your shoulders, and you might feel good about yourself, you might feel comfortable, but you'll never be balanced. You'll never be strong. You'll never get to that next level. And a really good story to explain this as well, and it's a little bit embarrassing because when I was in my mentorship program with high ticket sales, I would do a lot of calls, and I had this ego within myself that I didn't want to show my bad calls. I didn't want to show my weak calls. So every time that I had to get my calls reviewed by my sales manager or my mentor, I would only show them my best calls, the ones where I know I did 110% good. And I would get no feedback from it. They would say, yeah, Kashi, this is a really good call. But that is detrimental and was detrimental to my success back then because I didn't grow. I didn't hear the cold hard truth that I needed to hear, which was that Kashi, you suck at certain objections. You suck at certain points in the call. And I just didn't hear that. And it was only until I decided that, you know what, let me show my vulnerable calls. Let me show the calls that I don't want anyone else to see, that I cringe internally, was when I actually grew. So yeah, biggest takeaway from here is don't avoid your weak points, hunt them, because every weakness you fix becomes an advantage in your next call. And most people will never do this, and this is why you'll win among 99% of the competition. But the reality is, skill isn't everything. A lot of people think that. Of course, being good is great. But even the best closers that I know can lose everything if they ruin their name. What do I mean by that? Your name travels faster than anything else in this world. Like, it spreads like wildfire. And in high ticket sales especially, your reputation opens or closes doors before you even speak, before words even come out of your mouth. For example, if you ghost clients, if you overpromise to the founders, if you leave offers without telling anybody, if you disappear, if you're bad at sales skills, word spreads really fast. However, on the flip side, if you show integrity, if you stay humble, if you communicate and deliver real results, your name compounds in value, and soon people start coming to you and not the other way around. And a really good way to think of this is it's like credit. Imagine you're trying to build a really good credit score. It takes time. It takes good financial decisions. It takes other people seeing your goodwill. It takes strategic play, right? It takes time. However, one bad decision, one bad loan, one bad debt, one overdraft, it can destroy your credit score literally overnight. And this is the exact same thing in high ticket sales and online business. I know a sales rep who was a really good friend of mine, and he was incredibly talented. If anything, maybe even more talented than me at high ticket sales. He was a top closer in the companies that he worked for, but he was very careless with clients. He wouldn't do his admin. He wouldn't do his EOD. He wouldn't build connections with other people. He would sometimes even exaggerate his numbers. He would lie on sales calls. And all these things are a big, big no-no in this space. And what I found was over time, he actually got kicked of his opportunities, and word spread like wildfire because that company was very well reputed and no one else would hire him. And he had a very hard time finding new opportunities, and now he's basically playing life on hard mode. And you don't want to end up like that. Compare that to, for example, a student in my program like DSA, where they have a great reputation. I remember I referred one of my students in DSA, and when I refer someone, like I have to put a lot of trust in them because my reputation is on the line and my word is on the line. And I referred one of my students to this opportunity that was doing $200 to $300,000 a month, and they actually went from absolutely zero to being the top closer in the entire leaderboard on that company. And the founder and the sales manager actually reached out to me and said, "Hey Kashi, I really appreciate you for referring me this rep because he absolutely crushed it and he had higher standards than everyone else." And honestly, of course, that made my day, but it just taught me how important reputation is if you actually play it correctly. So main takeaway here is don't make stupid decisions. Skill gets you attention, but reputation will keep it, and play the long game because in this space, your name is basically your digital resume. Sweet. Now that you understand that your reputation is everything in this world, sometimes the biggest threat to your progress isn't even your skill set. It might not even be your reputation. It's actually, sadly, the people closest to you. The higher you climb, the more you achieve in life, the more successful you become, the more uncomfortable, in most cases, your old friend circle becomes. When you start leveling up, honestly, it's sad, but not everyone celebrates it. Some friends will question you, some will mock you, some will tell you that you've changed, and I'm sure a lot of you watching this can relate to this. But I want to tell you that your friends aren't mad at you. They're just mad at themselves when they look at the mirror and look at themselves every single day that you've changed and you've achieved success and you've worked towards your goals while they're staying in the same spot and justifying to themselves as to why their life is great. So the only way to overcome this is you have to stay detached and stay focused on your goal and your self-development journey. And if you don't do this, a great way to describe it is imagine like a hot air balloon, right? A hot air balloon is trying to rise and you're putting more and more fire and flame into it and fuel for it to rise faster while your friends are still holding the rope from underground, right? They're still holding the rope. That hot air balloon is going to move very, very slowly, and sometimes they can even pull you back down. And what I found is to flip this on its head and change your paradigm is, of course, sometimes your closest friends can be detrimental to your success. That is why it's important that you surround yourself with like-minded people. And when it all changed for me was when I flew and traveled with other people that were doing 30, 40K a month in high ticket sales. I was surrounded by winners. I was surrounded by people that had my best interests at heart. That is the moments in my life where I've had the best success, okay? And I remember when I left my job and I left my university to go all into high ticket sales and give it a shot, I had friends who said I was stupid. They said it was a scam. They said it was a phase. They said 3 years later I'll give up. Those are the same people who 2-3 years from now, they ask me how I did it. They ask me how I got to my goals. I will also share another story with you directly from my personal journey. When I left my job and a very prestigious degree of engineering and mathematics to go all into high ticket sales, I had friends and even relatives who said I was stupid, right? That it's a scam or it's a phase and I'll come around eventually and I'll realize that this was all a big mistake. And 2-3 years later, those same people are the same ones asking me, "Kashi, how did you do it? How did you make it?" How did I do it? The only difference was I stopped needing other people's approval and I just backed myself and backed my decisions. So main takeaway here is detach from people who drain your focus, protect your environment because proximity shapes performance. Sweet. And once you've mastered your craft and you've cut out all distraction, there's one mindset that separates the ones who last versus the ones who disappear. And this is important. The fastest way to win is to stop trying to win fast. Just stop it. Most salespeople burn out because they're obsessed with this quick money, this get-rich-quick scheme that all these gurus post online with their Lambos and Ferraris. Like, it doesn't matter. They chase big months instead of actually focusing on their skill sets. And high-ticket sales especially, it isn't a lottery ticket, right? You can't just magically make $1 million overnight. It's a craft. And every rejection, every slow week, every mistake, every tough month, it's part of the process. And if you can just stay consistent, if you can push through longer than other people, you'll win by default. Like, I've been in this industry for the last 2-3 years, and I'm going to be in this industry for at least for the next decade, right? Specifically in high ticket sales. It's like planting bamboo, right? Now, for those of you that don't know how bamboo grows, for years, nothing grows above the ground with bamboo, but everything happens under the surface. The roots are going, the foundations are building, and then one year, bamboo just shoots 60 feet in a month. And I've seen this with the most successful people and my friends in this industry, is that for 2 to 3 years or even their first year, it's always the trenches. They're going through all the mistakes, they're learning the skill set, they're focusing on their craft, and by the time they've been in the industry for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, there's that 1 year where everything just starts working for them. And that's how success is. It's just an exponential growth. And that's a brutal lesson that I learned the hard way by trying to chase these get rich quick schemes. Sweet. So the main takeaway here is short-term thinking builds burnout, and long-term thinking, it actually builds freedom. But even if you play the long game, it all falls apart if you don't learn to manage the money that you actually earn. And something that I got from one of my mentors was, if you can't manage $1,000, the universe, or God, if you believe in that, will never trust you with $10,000. It won't work. And high ticket sales can change your income drastically within a month or two. But if you don't know how to handle that money, it'll just vanish just as fast. And most closers that I see in this industry, they go from broke to a few big $10,000 months, and they start spending it like they've already made it. They start booking holidays, they start renting nice cars, they start buying the bags, the designers, the clothes, with no budgeting, with no saving, with no reinvesting, and they just inflate their lifestyle. So what ends up happening is, and for some of you watching this might be extremely relatable, is you make 10K a month, but in your bank account, you only have a couple grand, or if not $0 by the end of it, and you end up blowing your money. And honestly, like, if you're watching this and you're young, you're 18, 19, 20, 25 years old, I don't blame you. You're young, you don't even know what financial literacy is, and don't get me wrong, I was the exact same person. So backtrack 2-3 years ago, I was 18 years old, making 10K a month completely online with full freedom living at home. So you can imagine, that's a lot of money for a kid my age. And I used to spend it on, brand new laptops, phones, bags, traveling especially, and I'd spend it on ridiculous things like $100 steaks, $200 steaks, which aren't bad, to be honest, but at the income I was at, I was spending too much for my lifestyle. And what I realized was, at the end of every single month, I spent maybe 80 to 90% of my income, and at any one time in my bank account, I only had a couple $1,000s, right, as savings. That's detrimental, because if you don't have savings, if you don't have money, you can't invest that into more mentorship. You can't invest that into more skills. And the most successful people that I see are people that actually understand financial literacy, of investing in their skill sets and investing in property, investing in stocks, investing in things that will actually help you in the long term. And the people that I see don't understand this most are mainly young people that make money really quickly, right? So don't do that. Save your money, invest your money, and the best investment you can make is into your skills, into yourself, and into your skill sets. That way you can actually make more money. So yeah, main takeaway, if you want to stay free, master your money, tuck it away, save it, and reinvest it, because consistency without control just builds chaos. So yeah, the main takeaway here is, if you want to stay free, please learn to master your money. Don't make the mistakes I make. And yeah, those are the 5 brutal lessons that I've learned from being in the high ticket sales space and online money for the last 2-3 years. I'm sitting outside, I have a beautiful sunset in front of me, and I just wanted to film this video to the younger version of myself, who's 18, 19, 20 years old, that just doesn't know what to do and can fall into these big pitfalls. And I say this because I've learned this all the hard way. I've made all the mistakes. I've done pretty much every mistake you can think of, every scenario you can think of, I've gone through, and I don't want you guys to make the same mistake. So if you guys found some value, feel free to drop a comment below with any takeaways, questions, things like that, and I'll drop my Instagram in the description so you can send me any questions you have. Other than that, I'll see you on the next one. Peace.